But with that growth comes the challenge to answer the most pressing questions of the day. Today, we face those questions head on.
Star Wars.
These aren't easy questions.
Some LMFAO song is coming to my head, but I can't think of which one.
The only thing I can think of off the top of my head, and this is totally corny, but it would be the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air one, because you come in and you kind of disturb things a little bit. Yeah, I think that would be it.
Good.
Keep it cool.
Openstack song.
I Hear My Train A-Comin' by Jimi Hendrix.
It's the final countdown, no question.
Oh, no. Austin, I know Austin is the first one.
I'm bad at tests, so what was C?
Ooh, that's a tough one.
I'm having a blank on D right now as well.
Well, there's, wasn't it like, weren't there like 5?
Ooh, let's see. Sleepy, Grumpy.
Grizzly, Havana, Austin. I think that's it.
Okay.
And Juno.
Juno, or Ice House, right? Then Ice House. I don't know what the next thing is. I don't know what was C.
Diablo was the third one. And then I think that was some, no, Diablo was the fourth one.
Can you repeat the question?
Snoozy, dopey, which is what I feel like right now.
Folsom and Grizzly, those are the only two I know.
Is there a Krabby in there? There's a Krabby, good.
Yeah, Austin Bear, Cactus, Diablo, Essex, Folsom, Grizzly, Havana, Ice House, Juno.
Diablo, Essex, Folsom, Grizzly, Havana, Ice House, Juno, and whatever's going to come next.
Okay. K's a hard one. Knick-knack. I don't know.
Oh, that's
Two double K's, yeah.
How long do we have for me to think about this?
Being from the South, I would love Krispy Kreme, but it's probably not going to happen.
Kick ass.
Kryptonite.
Kino, maybe?
Kangaroo.
My name's Keith.
Kilimanjaro.
Okay, we'll just use the drink name, Kamikaze.
What? Come here. What?
Welcome to day 2 of Openstack Summit. And now please bring to the stage Mark Collier.
Good morning, Openstack. I appreciate everybody getting in here so early. I definitely would like to thank Piston for providing the buses directly from the party to the keynote. For those of you who've been up all night, I mean, I think that was a nice gesture. So I think, you know, we continue to see just incredible growth in Openstack, and clearly some of you need to review some of the other releases. So I thought it would be fun to kind of go back through and look at our first 9 releases and talk about how OpenStack's evolved. And then really turn and think about the next 9 releases. You know, I think we're really at the very beginning of a whole industry transformation of every industry. I want to talk a little bit about that. And so if we look at the road to Ice House was our 9th release, as you may know, just released a few weeks ago. And you know, a lot of user input went into that, a lot of people who started with earlier versions and you know, went through a lot of the hard times early on, who became super users and really helped us influence it with things like live upgrades and really helped make the future upgrades a lot easier. You know, in just under 4 years, we had 9 releases. And so this is a little animation we put together that actually shows you a lot of the development activity. So starting with Nova, the compute service, and object storage. So those were the first 2 components that were part of OpenStack in the Austin release. You may even recognize a few of these names. They get a little bit harder to read as the OpenStack grows. But folks like Jesse Andrews and Todd Wiley, AKA the Beard. A lot of the early OpenStack pioneers were really working tirelessly to make those early versions of OpenStack. And we quickly added Glance, the image service, which came in the Bear release. That was the second release. And over time, we have expanded the scope of OpenStack, and there's been a lot of discussion about that. How do we go about making those decisions? Are we adding the right things? Is it getting too big? Neutron, the networking piece, came in next, and Horizon. And what's important to note here is that this is actually the start of the development activity. So the development activity actually starts well before it ever makes it into an integrated release. Particularly with the more recent releases, many of the new capabilities, the new projects, they were in development for 2 years before they actually became part of a release. And this can be a challenge for all of us, trying to follow along, keep score at home. What's in OpenStack, what's not. And we're also very lucky metering systems. These are all capabilities that are instrumental to operating an infrastructure as a service. And a lot of people have wondered, about the scope of OpenStack. But if you think about it, it's been 4 years and 9 releases. We now have these 10 key components that are part of the integrated release. They're all really things that fit together. An integrated release means things that we're trying to test together, that operators have told us, don't just give me a bucket of parts, test these things together. Today, with the summit format, a lot of the discussions, we actually had a full day on cross-project testing, working together to make sure that in the real world these projects work well together. And if you even look at Icehouse versus Havana 6 months ago, we've actually now have over 50 external testing systems to test things like drivers. And we had 2 in Havana. So I do believe that we've grown very rapidly as a community, but I think that we're putting some good measures in place to make sure that we're not expanding Those are the two biggest drivers of this new competitive landscape. And that's because people want speed. Speed is the name of the game. I'm not sure how many of you get this, but he was involved with speed. So how many of you here wish that your company could move faster? Any show of hands? I know a lot of you have your VPs nearby. So you might not want to raise your hands. How about this? How many of you want your company to move faster than your competitors? Yeah? Seems like a popular idea. You know, I think that we all want to move faster than we did last year, the year before that. And you know, the reality is, if your organization is not aligned around moving faster, too bad. And I think that we're living in a time when there's more creative destruction going on in every industry than ever before. You know, software is eating the world. Startups are springing up. There's a new incubator every day. And this faster pace is shown here in a couple of data points that I wanted to run through. So back in the 50s, if you were in the S&P 500, you were going to be there for a generation. If you worked there, your whole career you'd be there. Your company would be at the top. If you were at the top, you stayed at the top because you were at the top. Momentum, being the big guy on the block, that was enough. If you look just to the 80s, that shrank to only 25 years. So now it's no longer a generation that you stay on top. And if you actually fast forward to today, the companies in the S&P 500 are only in it for 18 years. So this speaks to this incredible age of transformation. Everything's happening faster. Software's driving those revolutions. You know, being big is no longer this great asset. It's all about who can move faster. And if you extrapolate that out and look, you know, where we're headed, that means that 75% of the S&P 500 will be replaced by 2027. So those are the facts. You know, we can all debate what are the drivers. I definitely believe that cloud computing, agile infrastructure, the cost dropping for experimentation, those are the things that are driving it. And I think open source is absolutely a key component of that. And so Openstack being at the intersection of those two things, I think makes us all incredibly lucky. I mean, there's an $80 trillion global economy. Every single aspect is going to be impacted by this. We're at the very beginning, the first inning, the first down, whatever sport. I don't know a lot about soccer, but whatever happens at the beginning. So, you know, I think that we're all very lucky to be here. You know, 4,500 people, 4,600 people, seems like a giant conference, the biggest one we've ever had. But when we think about how big of a change is happening and how Openstack can play a vital role in that, I consider myself extremely lucky to be here with all of you, and I think that we should be thinking about the next 9 releases, not just Juno, but thinking about, you know, how big this can be of a transformation, how Openstack can play that role. You know, in today's race, where faster wins, you know, everything else is a rounding error. And so Openstack is helping so many different companies move faster. And, you know, if you're working for a big company right now, you better put your super user cape on, figure out how to reorganize, bring in the right talent, move faster, embrace these agile technologies like Openstack and many other related technologies. And so the 3 people that we're going to be hearing from this morning, They are all super users. They are all people who are moving much faster and actually thinking beyond just where we are today and thinking about the next 9 releases, thinking about transforming their industries and opportunities that are just bigger than I think we've actually really contemplated with OpenStack. We think about public-private cloud. You know, the first person that's going to come up and talk to us is Toby Ford. Now, a couple things about Toby. One, he was an early believer in OpenStack at AT&T. So he was one of, like many of you, probably got the OpenStack fever, came back, started leading the efforts internally, getting more and more people bought in within his company. You know, they've been running OpenStack for several years now. They've actually running it in many different data centers. And that powers a lot of services that we all use every day. But the opportunity that he's going to talk about in his keynote is actually even bigger. It's actually dwarfs the opportunity for when we think about online and web companies. So I'll just leave you with one data point before we bring up Toby. So, when we want to think bigger, thinking about the next 9 releases and beyond, let's take a look at this chart. So the very small dot that you probably can't see if you're in the back, that's something called Facebook. That's their revenue. Google is not much further down. So at the bottom here, most people like to figure out where's the biggest opportunity. Mobile telco's $1.2 trillion industry. And you might not think of OpenStack as having a whole lot to do with mobile telcos. The rest of the telco business is the second one. So telcos make a lot of money. We probably all pay them a lot of money. The TV industry is being remade by moving faster by someone else we'll be hearing from later. But let's think about how big of an opportunity OpenStack can play in the entire global economy, starting with the telco world. And here to talk about it is Toby Ford. So Toby, why don't you come on up and tell us about it.
Good morning, everyone. As Mark was suggesting, I work at AT&T. I suppose you were probably expecting Locutus of Borg or Grand Moff Tarkin or the like, accompanied by the Imperial March. At least some sort of suit with the big old telco kind of mentality, with dubious intent and hopefully I'll disappoint you that way. Anyways, so AT&T, when I first arrived as a part of an acquisition, I was very surprised to find that open source was pretty much forbidden. We're not allowed to use it. It was only used in very small places, and I applaud the efforts of those folks that continued to, carry the flame of open source. Folks like Stephen North on GraphViz and the people that worked on R during this period of time, they kept that flame alive. It was surprising to me, given the history of AT&T and our involvement in Unix and C, kind of the integral pieces of everything that we do, and especially Dennis Ritchie's contribution to sharing, giving the tapes of Unix away to other companies. This was a seminal moment in the beginning of formation of open source. I've always felt as part of AT&T that I could help make this change happen, given that I've been a part of at least a user and abuser of open source for a very long time. Felt like I could bring that notion into AT&T. AT&T now has changed its thinking. Today, it's a much different place when it comes to thinking about open source, and it is now an integral part of our strategy. We are active participants not only in OpenStack, but in other projects, and we're now looking at expanding that into a new area that I'll talk about today. The NFV open platform is an example of this change in strategy that is the result of open source, and specifically the result of our work on OpenStack and our contribution there. It's taught us how to share again. If you look at how we typically work, our vendor relationships are very much about very small number of vendor relationships, because it is very onerous to create a relationship with AT&T. Many of those relationships have lasted over 100 years, and those are very large. And it takes quite a bit of effort legal-wise and negotiation-wise to get those in place. When you look at the 400 companies involved in Openstack, it would take us to 2112 to be able to make agreements with that many companies. Openstack has provided a proxy for us to get innovation into AT&T that's very unique. So this is a concept that I feel very strongly about. It creates an ecosystem that we can work with and get help from a lot of different groups. Our contributions have not always been that great in this space. It's growing, but indirectly with our partners, we have made a lot of contributions, and you'll see that with what we're talking about today. Openstack, we've been using it, we've had it in our lab since 2010. I was at the very first summit. It's remarkable, the growth that's happened here. I remember being in a one-room summit with not very many people. And then now, it's honestly very daunting to be talking to thousands of people in one room. The change for us as we started using it in 2010. In production, we actually put production workloads in end of 2011. We today run a number of websites like itcanwait.com, something I highly recommend you go to pledge. AT&T's developer programs around its API exposure, our mHealth program, our Toggle, our dual persona work, the backends for our address book that's on everyone's phone. These things are just the first steps that we've taken into deploying applications onto Openstack. Today, it's about 120 applications. Now, we've lived through good times and bad times with Openstack. Obviously, for us, we actually still have pre-Diablo versions, Cactus versions in production, which is somewhat problematic and an issue that I know the community is working on. I'm very excited about in Icehouse, the work done to get to rolling upgrades and the promotion of CI, CD, and these types of things in Openstack. This is very helpful to us. Now, as we've gone forward, we've expanded our footprint. So it started with three data centers, and now we've deployed it into 7 data centers today. This end of the year, we should add 3 more. The use cases that we're using have expanded from typical back-end applications and some of our external services, our API gateways. They've expanded now to include new things, especially big data and then a whole new area of function that I'm very excited about. It keeps me coming to work really pumped about the opportunity. Over the next period of time, over the next 2 years, we actually plan to expand the footprint from 7 to 10 sites and expand that by 10 to 20 sites. You might ask, why so many locations? The answer is NFV, or Network Function Virtualization. So Network Function Virtualization, I hate to be a purveyor of yet another acronym. AT&T is an acronym, and it's really excited about its acronyms. And feel free to throw something at me if I reel off 12 in one sentence. It's very possible when we talk about the mobility systems that we work on. But NFV is making a significant change in our industry. It's causing galaxies to collide. The traditional IT space and the traditional telco space of function and competitors and vendors, they're colliding. They're colliding on top of a concept that is essentially the ongoing onslaught of Moore's Law, of automation, of agile methods, of consolidation, commoditization, these web scale. These concepts are now catching the systems that we run inside of our network, the things that we use to run our mobility systems, and the things that we use to run our TV platforms. They're all getting caught up in the same desire to be more agile, to move faster, to have higher utilization, to lower the cost, to move faster, to bring function to market quicker. Those things are getting wrapped up in it. We, even AT&T, is having competition from unique new players. And we have to move faster, we have to change. OpenStack, open source, is helping us to do that because I believe that OpenStack can expand to include workloads like NFV. So again, this concept of NFV is really changing the landscape. Today in our networks, we run a number of things that are built on very specific hardware. Things that you may be familiar with, routers and switches, firewalls, load balancing, all things that have been traditionally things that have been already running on OpenStack today, already part of the SDN phenomena. And then beyond that, we're talking about elements of the mobility system, things like session border controllers or huge NAT devices. They really are custom-built, very expensive pieces of hardware. But when you look at them, they're actually very similar to the other things that we run. They look very similar to load balancers and firewalls and application servers. Thankfully, they come to us with natural pre-dereliction toward scale-out, toward cattle-based architectures. So in a way, they're ready. They're ready to make this transformation. And if you look at this space, you see a lot of open source players that are coming to actually solve this problem, starting with the things like Asterix and such. Starting at that point, those are expanding to include many of these network functions, both on the mobility side and on the TV side, as we look at and then are inspired by what Netflix has been able to do on a public cloud in a very scale-out model. We are able to be inspired to change the way that we deliver TV content to our Uverse customers. So this is helping us in a number of ways. Obviously, it is by changing to a new model, taking everything that was running in specialized hardware and moving it into a virtualized world, either VMs or containers or even virtual appliances, bringing them into a multi-tenant space allows us to get higher utilization, more agility, and allows us to be more competitive, and allows us to distribute function closer to the user. The real advantage that AT&T has, and if you think about it, we have an enormous number of physical places around North America where you could put servers. And by doing so, and having a lot of underutilized bandwidth between all these locations, if you think about it, we can take like content distribution to the next level, make it far more dynamic, and have it exist closer to the user. This is essential to things like moving a mobility system into a virtual platform. Making OpenStack handle more distributed methods is a key part of making this transition happen. So to me, OpenStack is well positioned to handle this new workload. The things about OpenStack that I like, beyond what I was describing as a proxy for working with a much richer ecosystem, a pluggability model. This pluggability model in like Cinder and in Neutron helps us to get leverage over vendors and to work with a broader set of vendors. And within that model, there is enormous peer pressure between vendors to have high quality code, testable code, stuff that actually works and is scalable and performant. Beyond that, OpenStack and its innovation cycle, it's helping us to promote the use of agile methods within AT&T. It's an example of how continuous integration, continuous deployment, and these types of things, especially our work around Tempest and around RefStack and DefCore and these things, they're helping us to promote agile within AT&T, a place that pretty much invented the waterfall method. Now, this innovation is causing us to really question, not just within this space, but in other spaces as well. SDN is a particular example where we're now realizing that the routers and switches that we use, they need to be virtualized as well. Unfortunately, the SDN term is very overloaded, and when I first heard NFV, I thought, do we really need to have another term since SDN is already so overloaded with hardware, software disaggregation, control plane, data plane separation, and hypervisor vSwitch virtualization, and overlay protocols, and orchestration and automation. Why do we need to have, why not just add in the layer 4 plus functions and the things that telcos think of as network, really applications? Why not just call that all SDN? Unfortunately, my coworkers are the ones that came up with NFV concept. So eventually I have to kind of comply with this idea. And in some sense, it makes sense because NFV means really a different kind of application footprint, a different kind of function. So hopefully, and when I look at all of the benefits of Openstack and where it's been and where it's gone and the next 9 releases, as Mark was talking about, I'm very excited about it, the opportunity. It is awesome. Now the thing is, and this reminds me of when I was a kid, I had this bike. It was called the Raleigh Chopper Mark II. It had a small wheel in the front, a large wheel in the back, very large tires. It had a banana seat with all leather with a nice back. Had a sissy bar, and it had shock absorbers. It had like a muscle car shifter with 3 speeds. It had 8 hangers. It was awesome. It was red. Unfortunately, it suffered from 2 fatal flaws. One, that the shifter was not really in a very strategic location. And when you were going, more onerous was when you were going downhill at high speed and you applied the brake pressure equally, you had a tendency to reverse wheelie and fly out the front of the bike. In this process, I lost a tooth, a cleft chin, part of my face, and mysteriously after the second time, the bike itself disappeared. Don't let Openstack have this kind of fatal flaw. People say, the Openstack's fatal flaw is that it doesn't have a benevolent dictator, or people who say that don't understand the model. The PTLs, the projects, they are essentially separate open source projects that have a unique federation, a unique binding cohesion that is the overarching concept of Openstack that makes it work. That isn't its fatal flaw. Its fatal flaw is not scaling from the level we're at now to the next level. I am confident in the model, I'm confident in the people, and I'm confident in the adoption that's happened. For me, the fatal flaw is a lack of, expanding the paradigm, thinking about Openstack more broadly. Not every workload is a perfect scale-out cattle application. Every once in a while, one of those cows look like Bessie, and you kind of fall in love with it. And unfortunately, that can give you a black eye. The pets have to be handled and have to be managed. The enterprise workloads, I feel, have to be brought into scope more clearly. And then on the other side, when we talk about catering to telco workloads, reliability, performance, scalability, distribution to many locations has to be a part of the story. It has to be included into what we're thinking about. And in the end, I think Openstack can handle that, and it can expand to this scope. So hopefully, if you'd like to hear more detail, more specific technical detail about what the change is and specifics about NFV and SDN, and then some of the work that we're doing blueprint-wise and changes we're trying to get promoted into OpenStack to make it more usable for this new NFV workload, please come and hear Mats Carlson at Ericsson and I talk about this at 2:50. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Toby. That is very exciting. I told him, he just needs to help us get to the next $2 trillion market, so no pressure. So next up, we've got Joel Johnston from Sony. Let's hear what they're doing. So Joel, Sony, what's Sony all about? What do you guys make over there?
Well, we make these little video games.
Oh, video games.
I think we have a video maybe we can just show you.
Sure, why not?
All right.
Wow. All right. Well, I guess who wants to get out of here and go play some MLB 14? Maybe that wasn't in the schedule. Sorry. So what the heck does all these cool games, all the stuff you guys do at Sony, I mean, what does Openstack have to do with that? What are you guys doing with Openstack over there?
Well, with Openstack specifically, we are hosting the software that connects players online for our first-party studios. And this software does anything from player matchmaking to stats to leaderboards and social media integration.
Wow, okay, so it's an integral part of the gameplay. And what I guess, are the benefits to Sony for adopting OpenStack, trying to make that part of your platform that powers PlayStation 4?
There are a number. Right off the top, virtualization in general, just the ability to use what we already have. We were able to take our existing bare metal footprint and run OpenStack there, which just optimized our data center. From the customer service perspective, I think the self-service aspect of it is probably very impactful for the developers. We have developers around the world, so we're on a 24/7 schedule, but most of our support teams are here in the US. So a lot of the times in the past, we've had tickets that come in to provision servers, and that could take a couple hours, a couple days, just depending on the workload. Now these developers have this at their fingertips 24/7.
So the developers internally that are making all these cool games, they're really your internal customers then?
That's correct. That's correct.
So you're helping them move faster and basically make happier developers, makes better games?
Absolutely. I think another thing is from a performance perspective, in the public cloud, some of our studios were having issues with just reliable performance, and bringing OpenStack in-house, we were able to do something to the nature of a 1-to-1 overcommit ratio. So they can really know what's under the hood, and when they have a problem, our engineering staff and our DBAs can get in and look at what the actual issue is and make sure that real-time element of the gameplay is always there for them.
That's cool. So in terms of the gaming industry, we were talking earlier about how every industry is being remade through software right now. I mean, I think some people were saying a year or two ago that the console is dead, and PlayStation, you guys obviously didn't take that line down, and you've come out with this home run, no pun intended. PlayStation 4 sales are through the roof, it seems. So, how has the console changed in this sort of cloud world or software world from maybe how we used to think of consoles?
I think the largest change is the fact that the software and the games themselves, obviously the quality is rising quickly, but you also have this level of integration with social media and the rest of the internet. I mean, you can play a game and click a button and immediately share video of what you just did in that game with the whole world. So I think that's a pretty impressive change.
So you're actually relying on your OpenStack powered clouds to power these experiences, so people can actually share their moment in the game.
Absolutely.
So we're actually connecting people, from one basement to another all across America.
Exactly.
That's impressive. Yeah, I mean, we got to get them social somehow.
That's right.
If OpenStack can be the way, I'm okay with that. So looking forward, I was talking earlier about looking at the next 9 releases. Just we're always trying to hear from users about what your wish list is. I'm sure for OpenStack to continue to be strategic to Sony, you want to see some things. You want to see you're here, you're engaged in the community, going to sessions. I mean, what are some of the things that you're advocating while you're here in town?
I think there's really one main thing with a couple of spires off of the hub. Primarily, it's in-place upgrades. Getting from version to version in OpenStack, I think that's a level of maturity that we're still waiting to see. I know you can do it with Nova, but when I say in-place upgrades, I'm talking about being able to go from Nova Network to Neutron, and then from Neutron to whatever's next, and the storage space, the same kind of thing. It's that maturity that allows us to do our upgrades in place and not disrupt our studio's workloads.
So that way you can really take advantage of those next however many releases. And I know a lot of people are here working hard on Neutron and working on the bridge to get you there, and so it's certainly a theme that we've heard quite a bit. So
Absolutely.
Appreciate you being a super user. To us, it's all about contributing in different ways, and coming out here is is a great way to do it. So thank you very much.
Glad to be here.
All right.
Thank you very much.
All right. So next up, we've got Guillaume Abouchan from Digital Film Tree. So come on up, Guillaume. We're going to have a seat.
Mark, good to be. I can call you Mark, right?
Sure. Yeah.
Sweet.
It's fine. Whatever you're into, Guillaume. Look, you look like somebody. I don't know. I know you're from Hollywood. You're from TV world. Like you just
Piston party last night.
Oh wow.
Woo!
I don't know. You look familiar. I feel like we should be doing this between two ferns. I don't know.
I think we should.
It just seems like that would be more appropriate.
A little something for you. Biggest conference yet? You gotta tip them. 20s now. No more singles.
Really? Times have changed.
Times have changed. Economy's getting tougher.
Huh. So, what the heck are we doing here? You're doing some Openstack thing or what?
Yeah, doing some Openstack. Have you ever practiced the ancient art of origami?
I can't say that I have, no.
Japanese paper folding. So, Openstack is like origami. And you can sort of take like a flat sheet of paper and you can fold it into a beautiful crane. And that's like software defined paper.
I see.
It's shape it, mold it, lotus.
It's a big insight.
Yeah.
Thanks.
As I just came up with that on the bus ride over here from the piston party.
Yeah. Okay. So what else can you tell us about Openstack?
Oh, oddly enough,
not just
oddly enough, little known fact, proprietary clouds killed 25,000 people last year.
Wow. I mean, you guys
crushed under the loads of their own servers.
I love data. I mean, if I'd known, we could have had a graph, but okay. Sure.
Yeah, open clouds, no one killed. Maybe one.
Okay.
Unconfirmed.
Unconfirmed reports. Okay. So anything else that we should be aware of? What goes on in those server rooms of yours?
I think
I'm not sure if I actually want to know now that I ask it.
Yeah, it's a frightening place to be, alone at night. But the biggest thing we're introducing this year, really why I'm here and why I feel like the biggest contribution we can make to the community is something we like to call SWAS. So that's Sweater as a Service. And, IT...
SWAS or SWAS?
Like SWAS.
Okay.
It's sort of South American in its pronunciation. But SWAS, IT professionals are exposed to hypothermia every day in data centers. And we want to make sure that there are sweaters hanging there for them to just grab at a moment's notice. They feel a little bit chilled. They're just sitting there and they're like, I'm so cold, I can't write code anymore. They can grab a sweater.
Well, hopefully OpenStack has produced enough of this kind of clothing, apparel, if you will, to keep everybody safe. All right, well, in all seriousness, why don't we actually bid adieu to Zach and hear from Guillaume again. So you actually are, in addition to cracking me up backstage, you're also with this company, Digital Film Tree.
Yes.
We heard a bit about what you guys do in Hong Kong, but you're part of how television gets made. What is that exactly? What does Digital Film Tree actually do?
We're a full-service television and film post-production facility in Los Angeles, and we take content from camera acquisition throughout that entire finishing process out all the way to distribution. So work on shows like Modern Family, NCIS Los Angeles. We did Her last year, And you know, we're really trying to sort of change the industry in a positive way that I feel will save the industry in many ways.
So I know that you know, you're a smaller company. A lot of people think OpenStack's only for big companies. We were talking about this yesterday, and you were very excited about, you know, the fact that a smaller company can be a part of a big mission. You know, how do you feel about that? Is that true?
Yeah, I mean, we stood up our first OpenStack deployment. We only have 4 people that concentrate on OpenStack, and we stood it up in 6 months. And OpenStack is now the cornerstone to, you know, almost every television show we do, including not only an OpenStack instance that we have at DFT, but also on-site instances of OpenStack that we run right in an editorial environment on 2 of our shows.
So you've talked in some of the videos we've seen. People may recognize you from, you know, your TV show as well as the videos here. But you know, what is it about your career that you felt was, you know, possible now? You were saying that, you know, maybe the industry was dying. There was a lot of people predicting its demise. So, you know, how has that changed your career trajectory?
I read a highly depressing Yahoo article about 4 years ago, and it said, "The industries that will go away in 10 years." And I went down that list, and it was like, print, okay, yeah, I could see that going away in 10 years. What are you gonna do? And then I got to the bottom of the list, and it said, post-production for TV and film. And I was like, aw. Like, I gotta find something else to do with my life.
Yeah.
But there goes that 12 years of a career. Sweet. So, you know, we really felt that by moving in a more software-oriented direction, what we like to call is software-defined post-production, that, you know, we can offer a much higher level of service to the creative professional and really keep post-production services relevant.
That's great. So, you know, the tools that your industry uses, you know, I think traditionally they're very expensive. There's a very small community. You know, obviously you're now using OpenStack as a big part of your workflow. That's a tool used by a much bigger community. I mean, how is that different in terms of, you know, how that makes up your strategy?
It makes a tremendous impact in terms of how efficient we can be as a company. You know, using open source software and being able to reach out to all of these people in the audience to say, hey, have you done this before? Or go to a blog post where somebody's done that before is tremendously beneficial. Prior to this, you know, we were using software that could cost $250,000, and there may only be 30 or 40 companies that are using that piece of software. You know, your blog, your wiki page was having the cell phone number of the guy who wrote the software to begin with, because the company who wrote the software is only 2 people. So, you know,
by the way, I have Vish's cell phone number if that's what you're looking for.
Absolutely, I will take that any day. But yeah, I mean, we really found it tremendously helpful to enter this community and have the support of thousands and thousands of people behind us.
So what do you want to see happening in the community moving forward? You're a big part of it now. You know, how do you want to see the community evolve?
You know, we've always been tremendous advocates of communication and education in whatever we do. And, you know, I really think the next evolution of OpenStack is really to educate a broader scope of people so that there's a broader spectrum of professionals for us to hire. Mm-hmm. You know, one of the problems we have, particularly in Los Angeles, is we just can't reach out and hire an IT professional who's fluent in OpenStack. It's still sort of highly specialized in that way.
So continue to grow the education efforts are important.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you very much, Guillaume. Appreciate you playing along.
Thank you.
Everyone in the audience.
Go OpenStack.
Thank you very much. All right. So before we bring out our next keynote speaker, I wanted to play another quick video for you. You've seen we've produced quite a few this summit. And this one really has the theme of how users can get involved and contribute, not just contributing code, but also getting involved in the summits, getting involved in operators meetups, really helping to influence the roadmap. There are so many ways to get involved, so we produced a short video to tell you a little bit more about that.
A super user will identify places where OpenStack can be improved, will work with the community in order to define how to improve it, and will then help to refine the requirements and potentially test once those requirements are addressed.
And you know, being able to contribute back to the community and then influence the community through contribution.
I feel like it's very important for AT&T to influence the future of OpenStack, as we are now pivoting from and really expanding the scope of OpenStack from simple back-end applications and websites to something even broader.
The most important part is, in order to be heard, you need to speak up. You can't influence how things are going. You can't influence what features are being developed and what direction it takes without being involved.
So there's an open source cloud provider that we have access to, and that we have a relationship with, so we can say, you know, what features we need and what features aren't working for us and what features we need improved. And given that it's an open source product, they can then, you know, work with the OpenStack community or within themselves to
In fact, 4 years ago, I actually left Rackspace to start SolidFire right here in Atlanta. And I started SolidFire with a very specific mission: to advance the way the world uses the cloud. And today, I couldn't be happier to be back here with a community of companies and individuals who I believe share a similar commitment to advancing the way the world uses the cloud. But how did we get here? In either case, one thing is clear: the siloed model of data center infrastructure is dead. And the shift to a pooled model provisioned and managed through software is well underway. And this shift has brought a sea change to both enterprise and service provider data centers. In fact, the entire architecture of the data center is changing, and the vocabulary we data center that's agile, scalable, automated, and predictable. Everything the legacy data center is not. And coupled with this shift in data center architecture is a fundamental change to the way applications are being designed and deployed. We're moving from a legacy world where applications ran on a computer, stored their data in files, and gathered input from a GUI, to one in which applications span hundreds or thousands of virtual machines, data stored in scalable databases and cached and scale-out memory tiers.
Great benefits in agility. But our next challenge is to expand it across compute network storage, that is entire data center, for all kinds of workloads. Thinking more like a public cloud provider, where any user in eBay, any team, can come to us to provision infrastructure for any kind of workload without thinking about it. Of course, the second part of the challenge is to do it efficiently so that we can sustain for the long haul.
Excellent. So John, tell me more about how eBay is using OpenStack today.
So the way we're using OpenStack, I kind of take 2 points of view on that. One, there's an external viewpoint and an internal. Externally, stairs, or they'd want to help, but it was just too difficult to pull off. And it's something that the community coming together and users asking for. Now our lead is, hey, tell us what your OpenStack story is. And we're actually getting responses. So it's been wonderful for what the community is put together and what users are asking of vendors.
Excellent. So Subu, tell me about eBay's business. How has eBay's business been positively impacted by your adoption of OpenStack?
So before I jump into the business side of it, let me say a couple of things. As an engineer, our developers love what we're doing. What our team is doing, because they feel empowered to create the infrastructure they need to try out all kinds of things. By extension, they love all the folks in this room for creating this platform called OpenStack. Oftentimes, they Google for OpenStack, figure out how to do things on their own. They create infrastructure. That's the kind of empowerment that's enabling us to do new kind of things that we didn't think before. The second part is quite interesting. That is taking to bring onboard workloads that is coming down.
So the speed theme again.
Yep.
So John, how do you see the use cases for OpenStack evolving in the future, and particularly around block storage in eBay's cloud?
Right. So in our journey so far, right back to, hey, we really just want to, expose the native APIs and give that public cloud-like feel to our developers. One side of the story is, hey, once they have resources, there's no end to what they'll create, right? As far as what they think of. There's no restrictions anymore. They want to build an Elasticsearch cluster, they're free to do so, right? They can build a Hadoop cluster all on their own. So that's one driver we see for block storage. The other one we see, right, hey, eBay, PayPal both have a significant data platform, transactional platforms. And what we see is, hey, where you started first with putting stateless apps and virtualizing them, and then putting your more important apps and virtualizing them. You know, same way with cloud. Hey, put your application stateless apps on OpenStack and get comfortable. Well, I think now is the time for the data platform apps to be hosted on OpenStack, and we see Trove and the work that's gone into there in the last couple of cycles as a key enabler for that platform.
Fantastic.
All right.
Well, thank you, John.
All right, Dave, thanks.
Thank you. Subu.
Thanks, Dave.
Fantastic. So eBay is a great example of a company that has embraced OpenStack to increase their agility and their speed, and is now embracing it on an even wider platform as they start moving SolidFire Agile infrastructure. The first best-of-breed converged infrastructure for OpenStack. SolidFire has partnered with the company that led the open PC revolution, Dell, and one of the undisputed leaders in the open software movement, Red Hat, to deliver a pre-validated and thoroughly tested converged infrastructure design based around OpenStack. SolidFire AI for OpenStack is a reference architecture for a scale-out cloud. It's based around commodity hardware and optimized to run a wide range of enterprise workloads. And you can download the reference architecture starting today from the SolidFire website. AI for OpenStack delivers 50% lower architecture starting point is 360 cores, over 60 terabytes of block storage capacity, 250,000 guaranteed IOPS in just a 27U footprint. And it's running in our booth today. So joining me on stage today to talk about the opportunity for OpenStack and agile infrastructure to accelerate the transition to the next generation data center are Mike Werner from Dell, or from Red Hat, and Steve Stover from Dell. Coming up.
What's also been interesting as a solution provider in this space, Dell has provided some early stage customers around OpenStack from our hyperscale customers who are really driving their entire business on OpenStack. And now we're starting to see that adoption in enterprise IT. So the opportunities for Dell and the ecosystem and our customers are pretty tremendous. And then if you think about what's really gone on since OpenStack has been announced, it's been a really short amount of time. We've come a long way in a very short amount of time, and we talk about great companies who are driving innovation and deploying clouds on OpenStack. You know, there have been companies on the stage from AT&T and earlier eBay, you know, Wells Fargo. These are all the types of customers that Dell has a great relationship with. And we continue to see that opportunity. From that perspective, you know, the opportunity really is abound, and we think that Dell has a unique opportunity to provide differentiated value in delivering solutions, again, with great partners like Red Hat and SolidFire. And so we're continuing to invest very heavily in the things that we do directly, as well as the ecosystem.
Excellent. And Mike, where does Red Hat see the largest opportunity in the year ahead for OpenStack?
Well, you know, we've been talking about opportunity here for the last day and a half, and you know, sometimes you can
for the things that Dell is doing a little bit more directly is, you know, we're supplying cloud providers with OpenStack-based solutions. We actually have our own solutions that we provide to enterprise IT, but those are the things that we do directly. From an ecosystem approach, you know, we're very well aligned with the strategy that SolidFire has. And we provide our best-in-breed capabilities from a component perspective. In the case of Agile infrastructure, really incorporating that helps that, and it's a common theme. So one of the things that again, that I think we're really well aligned on is bringing that operational view really to deploy and take the day-to-day operations off of those individuals to help them go drive that innovation. It is a place where we're very well aligned, and the approach of that SolidFire is taking with Agile infrastructure to deliver a reference architecture or an integrated system-based approach to really drive that time to value, speed the time that it takes to stand up the cloud, make it simple to operate, is really key, and that's something that Dell invests in and invests again in the ecosystem of partners along with Red Hat and SolidFire.
That ecosystem, again, and not for us. This is not about the three companies. It's really about our common customers. And taking that and moving that into an open hybrid cloud approach brings that confidence and consumability of OpenStack. I think everybody in this audience wants that, whether you're technology partner or you're a consumer of the technology itself. We've seen great advancement over the last 18 months, and we're really excited about the future.
Excellent. Thank you, Steve.
Thanks.
Mike.
Thanks.
Appreciate it. Best of OpenStack. That's SolidFire AI. So whether you want to do it yourself like eBay or jumpstart your OpenStack cloud with agile infrastructure, come see AI in the SolidFire booth this week in the Expo Hall. And today at 11, we'll have representatives from SolidFire, Red Hat, and Dell available to answer your questions. And if you can't get in this week or are watching this online, we're bringing this show to you in a 7-city roadshow starting next month. Finally, on behalf
we're talking about what we're doing, and so it helps us hire people, it helps us get features developed, it helps us have a community we can go to people and ask questions from.
By actively involved with the community, we can also attract some talent for our own organization.
The software development mentality that started in our software development team has spread to everyone who supports and utilizes OpenStack throughout the entire company.
The more people that get involved in the community, that means there's more people out there who have worked with this product and are potentially available to hire to help us work on the product. It's changed the way that we work. You know, I've seen my teams and the teams that I'm on become more and more distributed with more and more remote workers.
I'd like to welcome a veteran of many OpenStack keynotes, Mark Shuttleworth. Come on up, Mark.
Hello, everybody. Good morning. Yesterday, Troy announced described us all as the Star Wars Rebel messaging system or hypervisor or database or PaaS. We try to enable an ecosystem where everybody will succeed. And maybe that's why so many people choose Ubuntu when they're moving to the cloud. Even companies that have spent a long time doing things one way in Linux choose Ubuntu as they move to the cloud. If you look at the public cloud, nearly 70% of the Linux workloads on all of the major public clouds are Ubuntu, even from enterprise commercially supported applications. And in OpenStack, the substantial majority of the production enterprise deployments of OpenStack, those companies have chosen Ubuntu as well. And what makes me very proud and combinations of components from different vendors. That's extraordinary. We can build a different cloud every 15 minutes across a whole bunch of different clusters of hardware from different vendors. And the way we do that, if we could switch to the demo screen, the way we do that is by using Juju, this amazing service orchestration system. It's completely open source, and it allows us to build a cloud just like service orchestration system glues those all together. So that allows us to build the cloud incredibly quickly. If we can come back to the deck, it also allows us to do continuous interrupt. Testing, both on the stable version of the code and on the tip on trunk. And it allows us to do continuous integration as a service. For those of you as vendors who are actually shipping OpenStack itself rather than plugins, of you who are here to essentially figure out how to integrate your products with Open. What this means for users, though, is complete freedom in your cloud architecture. You know, we can place those services, those different charms, across any combination of any hardware. So what that means is that your cloud architects can essentially build in a morning a cloud based on a particular architecture, placing services on in particular places in the network. They can study it for performance for your particular workload. Then they can tear it down over lunch and build it again differently in the afternoon. And people have said again and again that speed is what matters. Speed is what accelerating your ability to learn, to master OpenStack is what this is really all about. So people who've adopted this way of thinking say that as they accelerate forward, as they essentially crowdsource all of the core components but maintain their own architecture, they have mastered OpenStack and move much faster. So when we work with the very largest clouds, their architects essentially model what they want and then use Juju to place the services exactly where they want on their network. But for smaller organizations, you may not have cloud architects, or you may want to have a best practice reference architecture. So I'm delighted to reveal for the first time a fully automated reference OpenStack installer, which we've built on top of Juju. Juju's open source, and all of the charms are open source. So what we've done is we've built an intelligent installer on top of those, which we've made available to our customers. It's part of our landscape systems management product. Again, if we can switch to the, there we go, thank you. You guys are well ahead of me. So over here, you'll see a new OpenStack tab. And that's going to let me build a cloud. So I'd like to demo this live on stage. I have over here a cluster. And this is, in fact, a C micro cluster from AMD. It has 64 fully loaded nodes. And we're going to use Landscape to install OpenStack on that cluster. What we've tried to do is to design down to just the key choices that any user would have to make. So what I've done is I've registered all of the machines in that cluster with Metal as a Service, MAS, and I've connected MAS to Landscape. So Landscape sees MAS, it sees that I've got at least 5 machines ready to go, and one of them that has multiple NICs for neutron gateways and so on. And I'm going to say, let's go create a cloud. I need to name it, so let's call it ODS Atlanta. I need to make some core choices, so I'm going to choose a hypervisor. We'll go with KVM. And as vendors come through the oil process, we will add them to this if they want. So if you're a vendor and you want to be on this page, then joining oil and letting us get confidence in your charms is the right way for us to be able to do that. We could choose different SDN solutions. Lots of interesting options emerging there. I'm going to go with Open vSwitch. I'll choose Ceph because we love it dearly. It's brilliant. Has been brilliant for 3 years. And now I need to add some hardware. So in MAS, you can allocate hardware to different physical zones. So you can model in MAS the physical separation of clusters on your network. So I'm just going to add 2 zones, and then, of course, this will map those up to availability zones in OpenStack. So we do that. All right, so, and install the cloud. So all of these machines are switched off. There's one little server in the back which is running MAS and Landscape. And Landscape will interrogate MAS, interrogate the hardware profile, so it'll study every node there. Then based on that, it will build a best practice cloud based on everything that we've learned from building the world's biggest OpenStack deployments. What's cooler about this is that that architecture will evolve. Landscape's a management system, and you update Landscape every month. And as you update it, it will evolve your cloud. It will, for the Sony chaps, it will handle version upgrades inside OpenStack if you wanted to. And it will manage the system from the bare metal all the way up, giving you a consistent cloud experience effectively as a service. But if you wanted to create your own architecture, your own installer, the important thing is that you can do that, and many guys are starting to do that now, on top of the very same charms. In other words, they're reusing the same charms, the service definitions, that telcos, banks, media companies, and others are using. As those charms get better, their implementation of OpenStack gets better just as well. So we're crowdsourcing from all the users of Ubuntu, essentially, the expertise to really optimize OpenStack components. And when you build your own installer on top of that, you're essentially reusing all of that expertise as it gets more secure, as it gets more performant. How good could it get? Well, that C micro chassis is pretty amazing. It has 64 nodes. AMD was kind enough to lend us at first another 5. So we had 6 C micro chassis. And on that, we set what we believe is a new world record for the number of VMs launched on OpenStack. We managed to launch 75,000 in 6.5 hours, so that beat the previous record by an hour and a half. We then kept going, and I got to 100,000 VMs. If you want to know what that looks like, here it is. That's 100,000 VMs on just under 3,000 cores. It was slightly overcommitted. so AMD got very excited. It gave us another 3 of those C micro chassis. And we turned them on, registered them in MAS, and added, expanded the cloud. It's all very elastic with service orchestration, and pushed it up to 576 hosts and 168,000 VMs, all in the course of a weekend. But if you wanted to go really big, how about the world's fastest supercomputer? Well, that's in China, and it happens to run Ubuntu. And over the last couple of months, we've been invited to install OpenStack there. The intersection of HPC and OpenStack is going to be amazing. That's all running on Intel Xeons, so the fastest computer in the world at the largest scale. An amazing piece of kit. At the exact opposite end of the spectrum, though, you might think that OpenStack is built to be big and bad, right? But what if we could show you OpenStack as a super light, super small experience for tiny clusters? Well, for the first time ever, in front of a public audience, this is ARM 64-bit hardware running OpenStack on Ubuntu. Those are the GeneX development boards from Applied Micro. At our booth, you can see OpenStack running on those with a whole bunch of really interesting workloads. Logstash, Kibana, everything up and running, and it's beautiful. And just to complete the silicon picture, last week we announced the completion of the port of Ubuntu to Little Endian Power. And so that makes Ubuntu the one platform that can give you an OpenStack experience across all of the different architectures that are out there in widespread enterprise use. Each of them has something beautiful about them, something interesting. And we're here to enable innovation, enable you to choose the platforms that suit your workloads. So you could have a lot of fun with this, and here's some of the fun that we've been having. You may have spotted these on our booth. Come and have a look at them. But Intel also makes these very cool microservers. And we wondered what it would be like if we had 10 of them in a box. And so here we have the orange boxes. Inside each of those are 10 Intel microservers with Juju and MAS. And so you can do anything with those boxes. They're an amazing way to just master distributed systems. We're using them for Jumpstart training. Our Jumpstart program now has a training dimension for 10K plus travel and accommodation. We'll come to your offices with an orange box. We'll spend 2 days training you to master OpenStack, build it in different ways, as many different ways as you like, combining components from those different vendors in oil. And once you've mastered it, we'll leave that box with you for 2 weeks so that you can figure out exactly what you want to do with it. Most people at that stage are ready to go and build their own OpenStack clouds. They've figured out everything that they need to make OpenStack exactly what they want it to be. And if you do build a cloud, if you do choose Ubuntu on your cloud, you're in really good company. Some of the most amazing companies in the world are building on Ubuntu and OpenStack. Deutsche Telekom, building their next generation network. Time Warner, building a huge media property, essentially, on Ubuntu OpenStack. NEC, one of the world's leading telco network equipment providers, shipping telco solutions on OpenStack, on Ubuntu, and offering a public cloud. And NTT, one of the great telcos in the world, building a series of clouds and also bringing some really amazing SDN technology to the OpenStack community. And they've chosen, and many others have chosen, I think 5 out of 6 of the featured super users here have chosen Ubuntu. They've chosen them because Canonical and Ubuntu have many firsts in the cloud. We were the first to adopt OpenStack by some margin. We were the first and still have the most KVM hosts and guests in production use. We were the first by a long way to adopt Ceph, and there will always be vastly more Ceph in production on Ubuntu than other platforms, I imagine. We demonstrated live migration on stage here at OpenStack for the very first time. We pioneered Cloud Init. So every time you boot Linux on any cloud, you're using technology developed by Canonical and contributed as open source. And right now, the key thing that we think is absolutely fascinating and amazing is Linux containers. In 1404 LTS, we shipped Linux containers 1.0. And this is a cross-distro effort led by Canonical. More than 60 companies participate in that initiative. If you haven't played with LXC, Just grab an Ubuntu desktop and spend an afternoon with it. It will blow your mind. When you see any Linux distro, CentOS, Debian, Ubuntu, Red Hat, booting in less than a second, right there, it's virtualization like you've never imagined it before. So it's really amazing, really fantastic. For Linux on Linux environments, it's changing the world. And it's the basis for a huge amount of innovation, including Docker, which you might have heard about, and tons of other things, essentially in the PaaS space, using containers, not VMs, to accelerate everything that they do. We have been an innovation enabler. Innovation comes from small companies like Docker, like Ceph. We are delighted for the Ceph guys with their acquisition. When you buy a company, you don't necessarily buy the magic, and you can't buy the ecosystem. And what is important to us is to be at the center of these thriving innovation ecosystems. We will be fully supporting Ceph with all of the management solutions that are available for it, for all of our customers and users on Ubuntu. Now, for those of you who are operating clouds, this is the cold, hard truth. You will be benchmarked against the world's biggest and leanest cloud companies, Amazon, Microsoft, Google. They do a great job of what they do. For OpenStack to succeed, it has to deliver innovation. That's what this ecosystem is for. And it has to make it possible for people to build clouds that can compete economically with those companies. And that's why we make this really strong commitment that Ubuntu is the most cost-effective way that you can build a complete, supported, commercially supported, sustainable private cloud. A year ago, we announced availability zone pricing, ranging from $75K to $350K per availability zone. Never gets bigger than that, no matter how big the zone gets. And that's immediately become popular with all of the people who aspire to scale. If you aspire to scale, if you want to build a big cloud, then this is the model for you. But today, we're also announcing another model for folks who are building smaller clouds and who would like essentially to get a best practice cloud that is entirely managed. So on your choice of hardware in your data center, from the pool of certified on oil and Ubuntu hardware, we will help you design and build a cloud. We will manage that cloud, a complete managed cloud to an SLA for $15 per server per day. And we'll make it fly using everything that we have learned from the world's biggest OpenStack deployments. If you do that with us, your cloud will be very good. It'll be carrier grade. These are big carriers that are building big OpenStack infrastructures. It'll be banking grade. Delighted to be working with NEPs like Cisco on the carrier market, the telco market, meeting the specific needs of telcos. It'll be banking grade. You'd be amazed at how much of Wall Street is adopting Ubuntu. And I was there 3 weeks ago and heard this completely non-attributable quote from someone who I believe is here. I hope that they're continuing in the same theme throughout the week. But most importantly, it's going to be Chuck Norris grade. I love dealing with the media companies. They're kind of crazy. They're pushing the limits. They love Ubuntu, and it's great to work with companies in that space. Comcast, Bloomberg, Time Warner, Disney. OpenStack it's incredible what they're doing with OpenStack on Ubuntu. With all of that activity, of course, we're hiring. Now, we don't hire prima donnas. The open source community has plenty of that. What we're looking for is people who are passionate about serious scale and serious quality. If you think you could really enjoy working at Google, but because of the automation and the scale, but you want to work in a smaller company and bring that kind of capability, that Google-esque automation, to the rest of the world, then come and talk to us. We're the guys in orange. Right, now I promised you a little bit of magic, so here it comes. Juju, which is that magical service orchestration system, enables you to do almost anything in distributed systems really, really easy. It's kind of, people don't believe that you could spin stuff up that quickly. At an IBM conference 2 weeks ago, we spun up WebSphere and Hadoop and a bunch of other things in about 3 minutes, and the audience just couldn't believe it. We had to actually go and show them WebSphere running. It was there, it was live, it was real. So I want to show you a couple of things that you can now do with Juju that you couldn't last time we spoke. So if we can, thank you. Oh, here comes the cloud. So, and I see blinking lights. So far, so good. This is Cloud Foundry. This is Cloud Foundry, which will be available as both an open source and a commercially supported product, supported by both Canonical and Pivotal by the time we meet again. So this is Juju deploying Cloud Foundry, so you could deploy this as a result on any cloud. This is on EC2, I'm afraid to say, but it will also be on on OpenStack and on Azure and on bare metal. So however you want to consume Cloud Foundry, you'll be able to get it like this with Juju from Pivotal and Canonical. If you wanted to do Hadoop, for example, this is what Hadoop looks like. I can do this straight from the store. So this is a little cluster, very simplistic cluster of Hadoop. This, of course, doesn't show you anything about scale. This cluster could be thousands of nodes, because that's just a logical model of what's connected to what. I could go in here, Hadoop slave cluster, and just scale that up to 200 nodes, and it would ask the underlying cloud for another 199, and we'd be off to the races. What else could we do? Toby Ford was talking about NFV, Network Function Virtualization. So really, this is about creating distributed services on top of clouds that improve, enhance, create software versions of some of the existing appliances that telcos use. Well, here is an open source NFV solution. This is an IMS, it's called, which is a really critical piece of kit for telcos. And so that's Clearwater from MesoSwitch as a series of charms. You can spin that up in a couple of minutes on any cloud, or again on bare metal. Just in a couple of minutes, you're good to go. What else? Oh yes, we spent some time with a company that's quite famous for cars on demand, and they were looking at ways to make their developers more agile, their DevOps more agile. So this is what we modeled out for them. They were able to get, a complete replication of their full environment that the developers can spin up in memory, or throw it a cloud for test, or throw it a VMware or physical infrastructure for production. So that's a whole bunch of different services reusing these charms. There's Rails in there, Memcache in there, tons of different app servers, tons of different databases. So it really is getting pretty amazing. So coming back to the slides, the ecosystem around Juju's grown fantastically. These are some of the companies that are using Juju to deploy complex systems or charming up their applications so that you can deploy their applications just as fast as that. And this week, I'm delighted to announce another significant company stepped up, committed a full team to work on Juju, and that's IBM. So I'm going to hand over to Daniel Saba, the CTO and GM of Next Generation Platform at IBM, to tell you a little bit about that.
So if you look at the specific areas of collaboration between IBM and Canonical, what we're talking about is basically leveraging the wide variety of Juju and Charm assets in the context of OpenStack, in the context of Bluemix with Bosch, in the context of SoftLayer and the way in which we actually characterize workloads and services, so that basically people can take full advantage of the underlying SoftLayer resources to then optimize their individual workloads. The only way we can actually do that is through that kind of a partnership.
So we'll be working with IBM on three things. The first is the integration of Juju and Heat. Heat does a fantastic job of OpenStack infrastructure orchestration. Juju does an incredible job of application orchestration. And bringing those two together will be amazing. So if you have a charm of your software, that'll be the easiest way for you to create Heat orchestration templates with a collection of charms, and off you go. You'll be able to use those same charms anywhere, of course. In OpenStack, it'll be amazing to use them with Heat. We're going to do the same with Juju Charms and Tosca, which is another orchestration standard, so Juju in Tosca. And of course, we're charming up IBM's portfolio of key software for scale-out and distributed applications, as well as software from IBM partners. So people all over the world tell me, they're just loving that agility, the acceleration of their DevOps type process that Juju gives them. But there is one common request, one very frequent request, which is for the ability to use Juju with other operating systems. Our focus, of course, has been Ubuntu throughout, but I'm delighted to say that thanks to a customer contribution, over the next couple of weeks, we will add full support on Juju, which is orchestration, and Maz, which is physical infrastructure magic, physical infrastructure provisioning, for CentOS. Now, if you look at the charts, CentOS and Ubuntu between them are about 80% of the cloud workloads that are out there. And so pretty much anything that you're doing on the cloud, you could now orchestrate with Juju. But perhaps that's not enough. Perhaps in some cases, it will be useful to use a platform supported by a much larger company. And so I'm also delighted to tell you that thanks to an unexpected contribution from a new member of the Juju community, both Juju and Maz, so orchestration and physical provisioning, will grow full support for Microsoft Windows. And to tell you a little bit about that, here's the CEO of Cloudbase who contributed that work.
Cloud-based solutions leads the integration between OpenStack and the Windows ecosystem. We recently added Windows support to Juju and Maz to meet enterprise customer requirements for provisioning and orchestration in mixed scenarios. Now, Maz supports bare metal provisioning of Windows, Hyper-V and Linux deployments at any scale, including OpenStack environments with mixed Hyper-V and KVM nodes. Juju enables complex Microsoft deployments with just a few clicks, including Active Directory, IIS, SharePoint, Exchange, and more. Windows software charms use PowerShell and Python and can have all the same power as Linux charms. The result is amazing, rich orchestration with both Windows and Linux components, like magic. Really, the best orchestration on the market, and it's entirely based on open source.
I would encourage you to check out the Cloudbase booth. They've done some very, very cool work. I was absolutely stunned when they made this proposal. Just to prove that that's not just talk, on those orange boxes over there, one of them you'll see all the lights are on. That's actually running OpenStack right now. The other one has most of its lights switched off, so why don't we turn those lights on? So what I'm going to do is kick off a deployment of OpenStack with mixed hypervisors. So there'll be physical installation of Ubuntu on that orange box going on, and there'll be physical installation of Windows on that orange box from scratch, and then orchestrated on top of that all of OpenStack, including Nova Compute on Hyper-V, so that cloud will essentially be running OpenStack with Hyper-V on that orange box. So here it comes up. It takes a little longer than Ubuntu to install, but it does come up, and you'll see it live on the booth. Also, what about applications? Well, here's what's running on the other orange box. Again, that's an OpenStack cloud with Windows images, and we've spun up on there Windows Active Directory, Microsoft SQL Server, and Windows SharePoint, all orchestrated. So imagine the possibilities. Imagine the possibilities of being able to deploy OpenStack with Active Directory backing your Keystone, or SQL Server as the database controller. So the world is moving very, very quickly. Heterogeneous environments, heterogeneous hypervisors, heterogeneous applications, heterogeneous platforms. That's the ecosystem that we want to enable. I very much hope we'll see you tonight at the Mardi Gras and Magic Party in the Murphy Ballroom. We'll be celebrating some of that Juju magic. And as just one last thing, Maz has, if we can come to the demo screen again, Maz has support for all kinds of different hardware. It turns hardware on and off, and Pixie boots it and does stuff. So if you go into the node, you can actually see how it's powered. There are all drivers for, there's a driver for C Micro, there's a driver for the HP Moonshot clusters, IPMI, AMT, and so on. But there's this Rebot plastic as a service thing. What could that possibly be? Well, what do you do if you're trying to sort of test a service that turns machines on and off, but you don't have a BMC? Well, if you're a cunning kind of person, then you take Lego and you make a little robot arm and you write a driver for Maz to turn the machine on and off. So coming back to Troy's theme, this works really much better, Spaceballs style, if you have little figurines and you go, don, 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 turn on the server, use the force, Luke. Yay! Who would have thought the same infrastructure that can power on supercomputers, power on whole data centers, deploy hundreds of thousands of servers, and put OpenStack or Hadoop or anything else on that could also power Lego? Have a great week. Thank you very much, and stay well.
I just want to give a special thanks to Chewbacca for making time out of his busy schedule to get here. You have no idea how hard it was to get him. So just one more reminder for everybody. Our next summit is going to be in Paris, you may have heard, November 3rd. So just wanted to make sure everybody knew the date. There'll be more details coming soon. But in the meantime, enjoy the rest of your time here in Atlanta, and thank you very much.